Oh, thank you, Pam. Thank you, Pam. Happy
You're
trail
welcome.
to you, darling.
Thank you.
Marion, I'm alcoholic. I actually have two sponsees and one of my shoulder to shoulders that are going cross country right now, and it's really been a cool adventure to support and walk with them through this. And you know, great events will come to pass for you and countless others. Pam plays banjo and was living on a boat, and she's in a trailer on her way to up north to Alaska, and that's pretty cool. So anyway, it's great to be here. It's great to be and an honor to be called back. So I must not have screwed up too much last time. Um, and always great to see my friends up north. Allie, we just love you guys so much. And Calvin and the work you guys do here, that you've kept the light on for all of us, and being able to connect with people from all over. And most always, I was taught early on, welcome, welcome, welcome to the newcomer. And we just, I hope you find something here that I've found, that I know Calvin and Ollie and Teresa and Peter, and that we found countless others. This place of grace, this place of hope, this place of, oh my God, how could you save a wretch like me? And and I'm always undone by that. Anytime that I come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's a live meeting, I just can't believe it's my life. And that doesn't mean I'm rich, and it doesn't mean I'm famous, and that doesn't mean a whole lot. But it's the things that have happened on the inside as a result of this relationship with God, as a result of this working the 12 steps and giving away what's freely been given to me, freely been given to me with no cost, with no grudges to bear. A book talks about none of that stuff. Nobody speaking to me from a spiritual mountaintop or hilltop and speaking down to me, but always just that one drunk to a neck, shoulder to shoulder. And I love that. And, you know, early on in Alcoholics Anonymous was the first place, everything I learned that I know about life, I learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. When I came in the doors, it was like for the first time in my life. It was like for the first time in my life, I shut up and I listened. The old timers would say, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. And I could hear a message of hope. I could hear a message of, oh my God, seeing people with I just experienced this the other day of, we were up visiting, went to a wedding up in New Jersey, and I came out of the shower and I'm upstairs putting on my makeup, and I can hear Peter and our other friends downstairs, and they're laughing and hooping and hollering. And it's like, this is my life today. How does that happen? That, so anyway, so so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Um, my home group is Alcoholics and God in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I have a sponsor, and I get the pleasure and honor of sponsoring women. And I've learned early on I got to give it away to keep it, and I just know that for my life, as I've walked this walk, that I can't outgive God. The more that I pour out in my life, the more God pours into me. And it's this, Peter's sponsor talks about this, that it's a matter of pitching and catching. I look at your faces and I look at your eyes, and you inspire me. You inspire me. And we can see that, and we can feel that, and we can grasp that somehow. And I just love that about God. I just love that about this fellowship. And, you know, last week, um, I'm in Peter's office right now, and I'm sitting in his chair, and we have recently, November or April 9th, we became husband and wife. And um, thank you so much. And And so a partnership that God had planned, and a lot of trials and tribulations and things that have held back the movement of that, and finally coming into that place has been a miraculous journey. It's been a miraculous journey. And as we've tended to walk this walk, shoulder to shoulder, it's like I bounce things off him, he bounces things off of me, and we walk this walk. And we're, he's from Brooklyn, I'm from Bellingham, Washington. We couldn't be more different. But when we join on this common journey, when we join in this fellowship of the Spirit, our hearts unite. And from this place is this thing called grace. And it's not something I've earned, it's not something I deserve, it's not something that makes me better than anybody else, and it certainly doesn't make me any less than anybody else. At my sobriety date, I think I said it, is November 11th, 1989. I've been sober 32 years on this journey, one day at a time. And the longer I'm sober, the more I know that in myself and in my own self-will, that's a treacherous place to be. And the more I walk my life out with God and I'm connected with God, I don't like the feeling produced by self. I don't like the feeling produced by all the manifestations of self, because if alcohol is but a symptom of our disease, how other ways does it manifest in my life? Well, I'm not a gambler, and I'm not I'm happily married. And there's other ways that that my disease doesn't manifest. But the way it does manifest is ways that it describes in our big book, selfishness, self-centeredness, 100 forms of fear and self-delusion, an actor trying to direct the show. And whenever I'm running on that fuel, I'm empty on the inside. And that's what I can't bear. That's what I can't stand. That's what smells bad and feels bad. And it's like, glory to you, God, I can come right back to you. Because after all, he's deep down inside of every single one of us. And it's just a matter of me coming right back into that conscious contact, And so that's a long way of saying how I walked into Peter's office and I'm looking for a topic, and I grabbed his 12 and 12, and this paragraph jumped out at me, and most specifically that line. And it just touches on things I've been reading lately. I just finished this book and I'm going to read a little bit out of that. But more clearly than anything, the word that's just keeps coming to me is kingdom. We can be in this world, but not of this world. This world's hard to bear. This world's hard to bear for me, in my selfishness, in my self-centeredness, in my actor trying to direct the show, in all those manifestations of alcoholism, which is a mental illness, grave emotional mental disorder. It says that I have. Until I leave this beautiful planet, which when I see it through God's eyes, when I see it through that place, it's gorgeous and it's fabulous. So that word that came out to me, that stuck out to me in this, was the word kingdom. That I can live. We say it all the time in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. But I can live in that kingdom unaffected by the things of the world. And I don't mean like the world's a terrible place. Please don't get me wrong. One of my fabulous favorite acronyms for GOD is the great outdoors. I walk every morning and I listen to the birds and I see the butterflies and I see those things that were made by God for my pleasure, for our pleasure. So getting to this, I'm going to read the whole paragraph and I'm just going to stop as Spirit leads me. But it says this, and it's so true. There's a direct linkage among self-examination, meditation, and prayer. Taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit. But when they're logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. See, when I'm doing self-examination, see, my troubles are of my own making. My troubles are always of my own making. When I'm looking at you to change, if I'm not the problem, I can't get the solution. If I'm waiting for any circumstance, anything to change, the problem always arises out of me or my reaction to it. So it says, taken separately, these practices can bring much relief and benefit, but when they're logically related and interwoven, the result is an unshakable foundation for life. This is my foundation for life. And, you know, our big book talks about a new triumphant arc in step 3 that I'm gonna pass through for this foundation for life. And have I tried, in our 5th step it talks about, have I tried to build mortar without sand? It's on and on and on about our foundation for life and what are the things that we're doing to build on that, to build on it. This book I'm reading talks about, we can't go without air, we can't go without shelter, we can't go without sunshine, but I also I can't go without the things that feed my soul today, whether it's the prayer, the continuous inventory of self-check, inventory of all that stuff. Those are my foundations for life. So now and then, here comes the line. Now and then, we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality, which is God's kingdom. You guys know what I'm talking about. Because if you've been in God's kingdom and you know what that feels like, and you know what that sounds like, and you know that peace that's deep down inside of every single one of us, when we get to connect in there, it's like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. And today hasn't been the easiest day. We have Peter's one of somebody that Peter drank with many, many years ago, a man that is Paulie D from New York who moved here to South Florida. He went into the loving arms of God today. And this man had a big book in his arm, and during COVID, he had meetings on his stoop, and he was full of the joy of God. He was, one of those men he stood there fresh skin and glowing, and he carried this message, and he passed on today. He went into the kingdom. He went into the glory of God. And, for a minute, I just felt like, my heart was so sad. And I'm like, how am I going to do that meeting tonight? And instantly it was like, I can hear Polly's voice, like, Miss Marion, where do you think God would want you to be tonight? Where do you think God would want you to be tonight? And a man who carried this message well, and any of you who know him, you know what I'm talking about. And if you didn't, he'll be one of those heroes that we all talk about, in the ones in the big meeting in the sky, right? So it says, now and then we may be granted a glimpse of that ultimate reality, which is God's kingdom, and we will be comforted and assured that our own destiny in this realm will be secure for as long as we try, however faltering, to find and to do the will of our own Creator, to find and to do the will of our Creator. And guys, I'm going to mess it up. Guys, I'm going to, we pause when agitated and doubtful or doubtful. Gosh, I always forget. Agitated, I can pause pretty good there. Doubtful, I'll go on a hunch and come back on the hunch. Doubtful, oh crud, I should have stopped, darn it. And things like that. But I can reassure you, and I can tell you that this long in sobriety, I know that I've been given this gift of the kingdom, that I get a taste of, that I get a glimpse of. So I want to read this from this other book I've been reading that I love so much, if you don't mind. And it says this. It says, this is a passage to read and reread because every generation has tried to dim the blinding brightness of its implications. Those of us scarred by sin are called to closeness with him around the banquet table. The kingdom of God is not a subdivision for the self-righteous, or for those who lay claim to private visions of doubtful authenticity and boast they possess the state secret of their salvation. It is for larger, homelier, and less self-conscious people who know they're sinners because they've experienced the yaw and pitch of mortal struggle. The men and women who are truly filled with light, for those who have gazed deeply into the darkness of their own imperfect existence. And I love that. This was written by a man who was a Jesuit priest, and he just thought if he just followed the ways of Mother Teresa, that surely he'd be enlightened, and ended up hitting a bottom as a hopeless drunk in the streets of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on a corner where a woman kicked him and said to her daughter, pass him by, and kicked him. And how many of us know that feeling and know that desolation and know that stuff? But here's this loving God who gives us this free handout of grace, who gives us this free handout of his kingdom, not because we earn it and not because we deserve it, any of us, And I don't know about you, but there was always this place in my life as an alcoholic where I would compare myself to other people. Well, I'm just not good enough like those girls who have God. After all, they get the Barbies, they get the bikes, they get the bows in their hair. What about me? And then there's the ones that I could pass by that possibly in AA that I would think, well, I'm a little better than them. And I'm going to tell you, that's a soul killer for me. It's always a soul killer for me. I'm not, the great equalizer in Alcoholics Anonymous, this God who has this furious love for me, that he's going to seek me out, that he's going to seek us out, not because Peter's got his poop together or Ali's got his poop together, but just because he is. That calls me by name, that knows every hair on my head, that knows every screw up I've ever done. So as my big book has charged me to do, as my life has charged me to do, to live this life of surrender with God himself, with this place that is as personal to me and to my touch as it is as personal to you in your touch. The realm of the spirit, his kingdom. The big book talks about not being able to see the kingdom of God unless we come to him like a child. Coming to him like a child with childlike faith. I don't know, I was talking to some youngins about God this morning, and it's not because it's for academians and being able to, come to this God and earn it or deserve it. And I was thinking about this kingdom. The big book also talks about, the Bible talks about, I'll say it by name. In his kingdom is righteousness, peace, and joy. What is righteousness? Well, that's becoming right with God. That doesn't mean I'm self-righteous. It means I'm God righteous. there's no righteousness in me at all. The longer I'm sober, the more I don't know how to deal with things. God, please help me make the meatloaf, tonight. You better put it in the oven, honey. Things like that. Things like that. I love the effect produced by God. I love the effect produced by that daily surrender. I love that effect produced by um, the surrender to this power. And I don't know why I get to get back to him, and that I even think, it's even taking the credit for getting back there. I screw it up enough every time, and my back is up against the wall. And it's like, and then there's the days I was talking to these youngins this morning too about this, it's like there's the days I'm firing on all cylinders and I'll do the same prayers I did in the morning. And it's just a glorious day. And I can do the same prayers the next day and I'm falling on my face. I, I think, they used to tell me the early days of AA, God loves drunks. Why? Because we're just so fun to watch. We're just so fun to watch. We stumble and we fall and we pick ourselves back up. But that's what this community is about. This is what God always planned for us, was to lean on each other and knowing that we needed each other. Getting on Zoom and figuring out how to do that and get us through. Oh my God, that was the spookiest thing ever when this first all started, It was like how, the little meetings I would complain about, the little share meetings or whatever. It's like, God, I wish I was there, because that's what I need. That's what this hopeless drunk needs today. So a prayer I've been wrestling with too. It comes out of this book. And if you want to know, we'll talk about it later. There's a place I call home. There's a place I call center. There's a place where Dr. Bob had it in his humility, prayer of humility, of finding that home and that peace inside, And I know that's my true north, is this God inside of me, not swayed by whether you give me a compliment, not swayed by whether you don't like anything I have to say, not moved by the plans of people, not moved by the plans of anyone, but that place in home that says, a word that I found in this was Abba, which is a word for God, right? Abba. And it's a meditation I've been working with. That's like, it's the same as our breath. It has the same syllables as our breath. And you breathe in, Abba, I belong to you. So the distractions come and the dismays come and the fears come. Abba, I belong to you. And that's what the deal is. That's the prayer I use today. There's many of them, but it's one that's just been really sitting with me lately. And this gentleman that was a drunk, that was a Jesuit priest, that got kicked on the side of the road. What he had done is he had brought it to this woman who was just deeply, deeply wounded. And he said, sit with it. Don't add anything to it. Don't take anything away from it. That's our God. That's our Father who art in heaven. And we're definitely not people that are here to not be all inclusive or cause any division. But I can tell you, I have a friend that I was told today when she was in that place today. When my friend Polly was called home and she had an experience with Polly, an experience with God, and this is just my experience, strength, and hope. I can tell you that I've felt the power of that God in cathedrals. I used to sing, and I sing, and I've sang in big cathedrals, and I felt the presence of God there. And when I got married that day, when I stood there with Peter in this beautiful sanctuary, I felt God's presence there. And when I've been in my own childbirth and witnessed the births of my own grandchildren, I felt that presence of God there. And when I've sat with the passing of my father, my dad, I felt the presence of that God there. And in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, when I've knelt on my knees and I've done a third step with an alcoholic, I've done it live in a meeting before. I remember a couple drunks walking into the Northwest group of Alcoholics Anonymous, where I was raised the first 20 years of my sobriety. Who's this God? I got to get this God now. And these two people kneeling right in the middle of the meeting. I need that God right now. And I feel the presence of that God right there. See, God doesn't make too hard of terms for those who seek him. His kingdom lies within each and every single one of us, every man, woman, and child. I just had this experience recently, and it was like this, that, I don't know, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Deep down inside every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God, right? When we go outside and it's cold, we get goosebumps, right? But remember the God bumps that we get? Have you ever noticed that they come from the inside out, not from the outside in? And have you ever noticed the things that give me goosebumps may not give you goosebumps? You might like to listen to a good rap song and it gives you a goosebump. You know, I love Naomi Judd, or whatever. That came from the inside out. And some of the things I say and some of the things that move my heart may not move you. I know Pam's moved by banjo music, I know Ollie's got his prayers he does, and Peter's got his things he does, and Calvin and Teresa, and every single one of us, or Roger, or whatever. That came from the inside out, deep down inside every man, woman, and child, the fundamental idea of God. That's where the kingdom manifests. Righteousness, peace, and joy. I was talking to these youngins this morning, and it was like talking about the promises actually of the third step. We enjoyed peace of mind. It's like, what? Peace of mind and of spirit. And I owe all of that to Alcoholics Anonymous. I owe all that to this God of my understanding, and God that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to understand. And this prayer today might be a different prayer tomorrow, and all that stuff. But guess what? That union is mine. That union with God, that communion with God is mine. And yours is yours. And I hope you find him. And I hope you find him now if you haven't. So thank you for letting me speak tonight. It's great to be back with y'all, and just love you so, 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 so much. Thanks.